Dear friends, welcome back to the Crimson Academy's course on the Kitab-i-Iqan. This section, we're covering paragraphs 57 through 58 of the Kitab-i-Iqan. In this section, Baha'u'llah invites the reader to reflect on the life of Moses. He points out that such reflection can provide a better understanding of how people have been tested with every new revelation from God. Some key points in this section. There was a contradiction between the disrepute of Moses and the mission God invested him with. The holy veil of Torah is the sacred spot where Moses put off his shoes. And this is from Abdul-Baha, selections from the writings of Abdul-Baha, page 235. The tree that belongeth neither to the east nor to the west is a reference to the reality of the manifestations of God. Baha'u'llah provides only a summary of the story of Moses and invites the reader to study the sacred book, the Quran, for full details. There are also similar passages in the Bible, and that in the Bible is in Exodus chapter 2, 11 through 25. In some answered questions, Abdul-Baha briefly describes the condition of Moses before he was called by God to be his manifestation. He highlights the contrast between Moses' earlier reputation as a murderer and his mighty task of freeing the sons of Israel from the chains of the Pharaoh and of transforming them into a great nation. Moses was for a long time a shepherd in the wilderness. To outward seeming, he was a man who had been reared in the bosom of tyranny, had become reputed among men as a murderer, had taken up the shepherd's staff, and was fiercely hated and reviled by Pharaoh's government and people. It was such a man who freed a great people from the fetters of captivity and persuaded them to leave Egypt and settle in the Holy Land. And this is from Abdul-Baha, Some Answered Questions, page 17. In the Quran, Shoaib is the prophet Shoaib, is mentioned as one of the prophets of God sent to the people of Midian. And Midian is in the Quran, Surah 11, verse 84. He was a descendant from Abraham in the Bible. He is referred to as Rule, and that is Exodus chapter 2 verse 18, and Jethro, the priest of Midian, and that's Exodus chapter 3 verse 1. Moses married Shoaib's daughter while he was in hiding in Midian and worked as a shepherd for him. In paragraph 57, Baha'u'llah describes Moses as entering into the holy sacred veil. Abdul-Baha points out that the holy veil of Torah, or sacred veil as referred to in the Quran, that's Quran chapter 20 verse 12, is the sacred spot where Moses put off his shoes. This is Abdul-Baha, selections from the writings of Abdul-Baha, page 235. This is the incident as referred to in the Quran. But when he came to the fire, a voice was heard, "O Moses, verily I am thy Lord. Therefore in my presence put off thy shoes. Thou art in the sacred veil Torah. I have chosen thee. Listen then to the inspiration sent to thee. Verily I am God, there is no God but I. So serve thou me, and establish regular prayer for celebrating my praise." This is from the Quran, chapter 20, verses 11 through 14. In paragraph 57, Baha'u'llah mentions the tree that belongeth neither to the east nor to the west. This is part of a verse from the Quran in which the relationship between God and His manifestations is described through imagery. God is the light of the heavens and the earth. The parable of His light is as if there were a niche and within it a lamp. The lamp enclosed in glass. The glass as it were a brilliant star, lit from a blessed tree, an olive, neither of the east nor of the west, whose oil is well nigh luminous, though fire scarce touched it. Light upon light, God doth guide whom He will to His light. God doth set forth parables for men, and God doth know all things. And this is from the Quran, chapter 24, verse 35. In this verse, the reality of the manifestations of God is described as a tree that belongs neither to the east nor to the west. This indicates that the nature and influence of those holy souls are beyond the limitations of the physical world and belong to the world of the unseen and the infinite. In one of his letters, the beloved guardian Shoghi Effendi describes the spiritual evolution of humanity during the Adamic cycle and its consummation through the revelation of His Holiness Baha'u'llah based on this imagery. He refers to this process as the growth of a tree which commenced 6,000 years ago with the planting in the soil of the divine will of the tree of divine revelation. This is from the beloved guardian, Messages to Baha'i World, page 154. He then identifies the following stages in the growth of this tree. The first part of this process was the slow and steady growth of this tree of divine revelation, successively putting forth its branches, shoots and offshoots, and revealing its leaves, buds and blossoms as a direct consequence of the light and warmth imparted to it by a series of progressive dispensations associated with Moses, Zoroaster, Buddha, Jesus, Muhammad, and other prophets, and of the vernal showers of bloodshed by countless martyrs in their path. The second part of this process was the fruition of this tree that belongeth neither to the east nor to the west. When the Bab appeared as a perfect fruit and declared his mission in the year 60 in the city of Shiraz. The third part was the grinding of the sacred seed of infinite preciousness and potency in the mill of adversity, causing it to yield its oil 6 years later in the city of Tabriz. The fourth part was the ignition of this oil by the hand of providence in the depths and amidst the darkness of the Siyachal of Tehran 100 years ago, relative to the date of the message. According to the Quran, Salsabil is a river, signifies the source of the spiritual grace received from God through His manifestation. Salsabil is a river or wellspring in paradise, from which the believers will drink sweet and clear water. They will be given to drink thereof a cup mixed with Zanjabil, a fountain there called Salsabil. This, friends, is from the Quran, chapter 76, verses 17 through 18. In the Baha'i writings, the word Salsabil signifies the source of the spiritual grace received from God through His manifestation. For example, Abdul Baha writes to a believer, "To consider the grace of thy Master, how he hath directed thee to the fountain of salvation, until thou hast drunk from the Salsabil, clear water of life, of the guidance of God in this holy and rich garden. And that, friends, is from Tablets of Abdul Baha, Volume 2, page 256.